The Keynote Speech3 will now commence. Mr. Takegahara Keisuke, Executive Fellow, Research Institute of Capital Formation, Development Bank of Japan, Inc., will give a presentation. Mr. Takegahara, please.
Thank you for kind introduction. So, hello everyone. Thank you for attending our presentation today. My name is Keisuke Takegahara from Development Bank of Japan, DBJ. But I'm today here as a member of Steering Committee of TCFD Consortium. It's great honor for me to be able to have opportunity to introduce TCFD Consortium at a wonderful venue of TCFD Summit. So, TCFD Consortium was established in May 2019. That was because as interest in disclosure based on the TCFD framework increased, it was thought there was a need for platform or a forum for financial institutions and companies that support a recommendation of TCFD to work together to promote initiatives. So, currently, more than 600 companies, two-thirds of TCFD supporting companies in Japan are participating. In August of this year, the number of TCFD supporting companies in Japan exceeded 1,000. In fact, nearly 30% of companies that support initiative are Japanese companies. As shown in the graph on the right side, so one of the characteristics of Japan is that there are many participants from non-financial institutions. And that is those who should feel burdened by such a disclosure. I believe that this is the result of activities of the TCFD Consortium. So this figure shows the structure of a consortium. 2 working groups and a round table have been set up under a steering committee. So information disclosure working group consists of companies that disclose information using a TCFD framework. And the information utilization working group include the financial institutions that utilizes disclosed information. So the TCFD consortium is characterized by close communication and cooperation between these 2 working groups, I think, now. But to be honest, at first, at the beginning of the establishment, the conversation of company side and financial side was awkward, even though they were gathered on the common theme of TCFD. So, for example, with regard to scenario analysis, some tough questions were asked by companies, such as, aren't you financial companies asking, are you financial institutions asking companies to provide detailed information on scenario analysis and making decisions based on the worst case scenario? Are you? There seems to have been a misunderstanding that financial institutions only want to see the downside risk. So in response to this, we replied, what we want to know is whether the exploratory scenario analysis has been conducted appropriately and whether it has been shared with the management. The details of scenario analysis is not necessary. So I remember that through these kind of conversations, misunderstanding gradually cleared up, and the atmosphere changed to a more frank discussion. Since then, mutual corporate relationships have been built with financial institutions participating in discussion of guidance on the disclosure side, and companies participating in discussion by financial institutions. So, roundtable is the device that symbolizes this collaboration. This is a small meeting where companies and investors discuss whether information disclosure based on the TCFD framework is appropriate. So, as you can see, participant feedback indicates that this serves as a hands-on training opportunity for engagement. So, this system or mechanism is one of the reasons why the consortium has maintained its centripetal force up until now. So, let me briefly report on the activities of the consortium so far. This is an inaugural general meeting held in May 2019. More than 400 people participated, including the Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, as well as the top management of member companies. So in October this year, the first version of the Green Investment Guidance was published, which stipulates how financial institutions should utilize the information disclosed under the TCFD framework. So, for constructive engagement, it emphasizes the importance of focusing not only on risk, but also on opportunities, especially their role in fostering innovation. This guidance is a result, I think, of collaboration between the two working groups I mentioned above. So next year, 2020, the roundtable got on track and its function as a forum for exchanging opinions between companies and investors was strengthened. As a result of this year, the TCFD guidance on the disclosure side, which had been prepared originally under the initiative committee before establishing a consortium, was revised by consortium based on the latest domestic and international knowledge at that time. In addition to adding industry-specific guidance for the 4 industries, for food, banking, life insurance, and non-life insurance, we have selected and published the latest disclosure example, best practices from Japan and overseas. We, on the financial side, are also deeply involved in this work. So through these activities, we became convinced of the effectiveness of dialogue using the TCFD framework. So in July of this year, we announced a statement toward the promotion of more decision-useful TCFD disclosure, and it stressed the importance of a voluntary and flexible disclosure framework. And then last year, in 2021, we fully updated our green investment guidance in light of important development during the period, including our commitment to carbon neutrality by 2050. And various essences such as so-called climate transition strategy, emission management of investment and loan portfolios, so investment financed emissions, and carbon pricing have been added. So during this time, the activities of the roundtable have also progressed, despite the restriction of the COVID-19 crisis. After a trial in 2019, we have held about 4 times a year since 2020. Each time, we receive high evaluation from participants, as you can see on the right side. So we have also conducted fixed point observation of the status of initiatives related to TCFD disclosure through questionnaires. From the result of the 2021 survey, an increasing number of companies believe that their supporting of TCFD has led to improved relationships with their customers, and that climate change is becoming more of a theme in their engagement. So now this year, in 2022, as you already know, we have revised the TCFD guidance again based on revision of the TCFD supplementary document last year. We also have worked comments on the exposure draft of IFAS Foundation's Sustainability Disclosure Standards, which is of great interest to consortium members. So the achievement of these consortium activities have been highly evaluated by TCFD, and we are also very honored. Thank you very much. So far, I have explained the result of activities of the consortium, and let me briefly explain the future. So, as you all know, new ESG-related disclosure standards, such as ISSB's sustainability-related disclosure standards and European Union's corporate sustainability reporting directives are or will be being published after another. Many companies also appear to be shifting their attention to these new rules. However, many of the new disclosure standards are based on the TCFD framework. Therefore, it will continue to be extremely important and meaningful for business companies and investors to have discussions and share recognition in line with the TCFD framework. And furthermore, in Japan, due to the revision of the corporate governance code, there are many companies that will respond to the TCFD framework from now on. So I think that the consortium is expected to become even more important. So from this perspective, we are currently considering 3 specific programs to further enhance the activities of the consortium towards 2023. Let me give you a little overview of that. The first is service for companies that are starting full-scale effort to disclose information based on the TCFD framework. We will provide an introductory seminar for companies that are not yet accustomed to climate change-related information disclosure, including small and medium-sized enterprises. The second is the establishment of a human resource development program to train sustainability management experts for companies that have made progress in TCFD disclosure. Under the leadership of Professor Ito, we are planning a highly specialized educational program in collaboration with a university. The third is a platform in which the management of companies promoting sustainability management participates. As with TCFD, the higher the level of effort, the more new issues arise. We would like to provide a forum for high-level managers from various sectors to discuss these new issues. We are envisioning a place where the top management of companies participating in the Human Resource Development Program will gather. So, as I have already explained, the TCFD consortium was launched as a forum for discussion between industry and finance at one table in the face of the challenge of responding to the TCFD framework. And it has achieved results that exceed expectation, as Ikeda-san explained before. So, we plan to continue to improve our activities in order to contribute to the sophistication of sustainability management in Japan while utilizing the wonderful framework of TCFD. So, we ask for your further understanding and participation and look forward to further cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takegahara. Lastly, Mr. Peter Bakker, President and CEO, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, will give the closing remark. Mr. Bakker, please.
Well, thank you very much. And let me first apologize for taking the floor again. I guess I got this honor because I traveled the longest distance today, but I will just make a few closing remarks if that is okay with you. First and foremost, thank you, Takegahara-san, if I pronounce your name correctly, for the overview of the impressive work of the TCFD consortium here in Japan. It's really a world-leading combined effort that I see unfold here. I also would like to thank Matti, as well as Professor Ito, for taking again the co-hosting of this year's 4th TCFD Summit and bringing such a broad group of interesting speakers together today. I think it was said a couple of times today that the TCFD, since our last TCFD Summit last year, we've seen so much progress. You know, the Glasgow Climate Pact was adopted at COP26. The ISSB was created and launched. The prototypes are out, and we see in now multiple jurisdictions, amongst those here in Japan, that there are national processes and continued conversations around national sustainability frameworks. So a lot to be happy about. I also commend Japan with achieving the highest numbers of TCFD supporting organizations, more than 1,000 out of 3,400 in the world. And as frameworks proliferate and cover an increasing range of issues, from Scope 3 emissions to avoided emissions, collaboration and convergence will be critical. And I think TCFD has a key role to play in supporting enhanced climate-related disclosures. And I really want to thank again the TCFD Consortium's work and the launch of the TCFD Guidance 3.0, as I'm sure this will further enhance the guidance that will provide critical support to companies as they expand their TCFD disclosures. I think also the last year has not only showed us progress, it has also made it clear how important it is to understand and respond to climate-related risks, as they are directly now impacting the resilience of global supply chains of businesses. Whether it's the ongoing geopolitical conflicts that have emphasized the importance of decarbonization and low-carbon energy for energy security, or the extreme weather events, floodings, typhoons, heat waves, that have demonstrated the consequences of unchecked climate change. And we see more and more governments, again here in Japan, but elsewhere as well, are now focusing on creating the means by which policy, regulation, and transition finance can provide an enabling environment for business and innovation and sustainable solutions. I think the identification and assessment and the management of climate-related risks is now becoming a key competency for business, as well as for investment decision-making. And I really want to pause on that point for a little, because we should really now understand that this is not just about disclosures, but it's really going to the heart of management, of strategy, of investment decision-making, of performance management, even of management remuneration, and providing the right incentives to get the solutions to scale and the transitions to go fast. But if we focus on the disclosures, it's important to understand that we still have work to do in understanding the potential financial impacts, making connections from these disclosures to the balance sheets, the cash flow, and income statement. And this, to me, is one of the reasons why the work of the IFRS Foundation, the ISSB, that we've heard about today from both Emmanuel, Faber, as well as Katie here on stage, is so important. The ISSB Climate Exposure Draft addresses the connection between climate-related risks and opportunities with the financial positions and performance. I believe that link will flow into the valuation and really catalyze finance to flow to climate solutions. I think it is critical that we turn the ISSB into the global baseline of comparable and materiality-based disclosures. In that light, it was great to hear Satoshi-san talking about the fact that the Japan Sustainability Standards Board stands ready to integrate the ISSB into theirs. We've also heard that we need to move beyond disclosures of climate impacts. For business, the strategic response, pursuit of opportunities, transition planning, investment and innovation are critical other elements that need to be integrated in the strategic scenarios part of the TCFD. We've also heard that banks and investors are increasingly focused on plans for the transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilient future. This transition will require an enormous amount of financing and collaboration. The work and the growth of GFANZ is a testament to that. In their recently published Real Economy Transition Plans, they provide a helpful framework for the components of rigorous transition plans. And that will really help companies in their development of their plans and strategies. It will call on companies to provide disclosures on low-carbon R&D, CapEx, the provision of low-carbon products and services, and the impact of each low-carbon product and service on achieving their greenhouse gas emission targets. It was also great to hear that the NZEP, which is the Net Zero Alliance for Banks, have actually today released their guidance for transition. My point of view is that the next big conversation will be around the new climate disclosures impact on capital allocation and valuation models. Very simply said, most capital allocation models are based on discounted cash flow analysis, whilst we know that ESG disclosures, even when standardized, will mostly be non-cash items. And how do we actually integrate that non-cash world in a pretty much DCF, discounted cash flow-based valuation model? It was very interesting to hear Tepai-san of Nomura Asset Management say that focus on innovation and avoided emissions might be better indicators for enterprise value than perhaps the greenhouse gas emissions. Whilst I understand the correlation between avoided emissions and green revenue, we cannot forget, however, that only the reduction of absolute emissions is what will keep a safe operating space for all of us on this planet. But it's good to know that this meeting has recognized a number of areas where tools like the Greenhouse Gas Protocol or Scope 3 accounting need to be developed further and can really contribute to the overall implementation of TCFD. Whatever the final solutions there will be, the redesign of engagement between companies and capital markets is probably the most critical lever to accelerate the transformation. Companies actively contributing to the green transformation have a high growth potential, but this potential will only be delivered through a high level of engagement with capital markets, with the aim of understanding these climate transition plans and progress that companies are making, and through that driving down the cost of capital so that funding will be available to accelerate these transitions even more. Minister Nishimura this morning, or at the start of this meeting, rightly made the point that TCFD should not only focus on risks, but integrate a view on the innovation opportunities as well. And I think Matti's industry-specific roadmaps provide important context for investors and their use of technology in meeting the emission goals. This directly addresses the transition opportunities and innovation that financial institutions will assess and seek to support. Equally, I think we need to recognize the words spoken by Tokura-san. His focus on the investments in innovation that will drive the green transition is very encouraging, coming from Kedunran, and provides high hopes that we're now moving the TCFD conversation beyond disclosures into real climate action. I don't know what is going to be on the agenda for the 5th summit next year, but I'm pretty sure we'll continue to build TCFD. We'll talk about TNFD and possibly even TSFD, and that will all make this focus on climate, biodiversity, and inequality as the key global challenges the place to be. And let me conclude there. I think the summit is an incredibly valuable space. I know of no meeting anywhere in the world where investors, banks, businesses, and regulators meet and talk so openly about how do we actually change the system. And that is critical. It is critical that the financial system is aimed at scaling solutions as fast as we can, just as companies are on implementing the transition plans that we now all need. So let me thank all panelists. Thank you for speaking English, which made my life and hopefully many online a lot more easy. And let me thank everybody in the audience here, but also in the audience online, for your participation. Because this movement needs to grow, climate transition plans need to be implemented, and that's the way to stay below 1.5 degrees and successful in the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baka. Thank you. This concludes the TCFD Summit 2022. We will send questionnaire to participants today via email. We appreciate your cooperation in filling out the questionnaire. Your opinions will be valuable in planning for and improving the TCFD Summit. Thank you for participating in the TCFD Summit 2022 today. Hope to see you next year in TCFD Summit 2023. Thank you.